It'll be joining us. So let's wait. Let's just give it another minute, and then we'll get started.
You said a councilman is joining us?
No. Our councilman. Wait.
Councilman Koch.
Councilman Koch.
Yeah, wait.
But the only one I know for sure who told me she would not be present is Peter. All right. All right, well, why don't we get started? We've got a quorum. And I need, according to the agenda, to do my welcome. So welcome, everyone. Good to see everybody again. Appreciate everybody's efforts since the last meeting. And Dan, for those who were away at the last meeting like you, for your efforts in getting draft revisions and new sections to us so we could put the draft discussion document together we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So why don't we just get started? I don't know that we'll need the whole 2 hours today, but we'll be as efficient and productive as we can. So let me go to item 2, which is status of meeting minutes, needing approval. There are a number of minutes of prior meetings that we need to review and approve. I think we are fully capable of doing that once they're ready, and we can do it by email, or we'll just do it at the next meeting. But I want to be sure we get caught up. So let me ask Elizabeth, Jasmine, what you can tell us about the status of that, and when we might be able to start seeing some draft minutes that we can be in a position to review and approve.
Yes, you'll get an email from me in the morning, everyone. Once they're completed into SharePoint. There was an update last night, and I'm working from home today. So tomorrow everything will be in there, and I'll email everyone. I also know without our Queen PETA, we can't approve anything. She's got that eagle eye for corrections. So look out for that from me by noon tomorrow. And so we should have everything prior to this meeting will be uploaded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's move to commission business. And got a couple of updates first before we start looking at the draft, what I'm calling the draft discussion document, just to be consistent with the email I sent on September 30. First, the procurement survey, the internal survey that was done or supplemented. Again, Elizabeth, Jasmine, can one of you give us a status report, please?
Yep, so that closed on Friday, and I asked for the results. I'll get with BC Stat to give us some slides similar to last time, evaluating their answers. And as soon as that goes up, we can, discuss by email, or you all can use that information however, or if we need to discuss at the next meeting, we can also do that.
Okay, maybe I missed it. So when do we think that'll be available to us?
In the next few days. It's not a heavy lift.
Okay. And what is the form of that? Is it just a list of stats, or is there some sort of?
Well, last time how it was presented, it was in PowerPoint with graphs for everyone. So I imagine you would do a similar format.
Okay.
There shouldn't be an overabundance since it was a targeted group. So if everyone would like, I can also get you the raw data. If you would also like to go pivot table crazy for your own evaluation. But yep, so that should be in queue to me shortly.
And if you recall, and I think we do recall that we decided to do some more select group of employees. And that also meant that our own team, BC Stat, would do the analysis, which is similar to the way it was presented for the contractors. So I think if I recall, the commission was satisfied with the way that was presented in a slide format. And this will be like that because it's all being done in-house. It's not being done by the Public Works LLC vendor.
Well, I think what we'll do is let's send it in that format, and then if any commissioner would like to have backup raw stats, they can ask Jasmine for that directly and get it. We'll talk about it the next meeting and see if there's any need for something further. But I think that presentation, unless any other commissioner has a different view, your suggestion, Elizabeth, certainly works for me. That's okay with everybody. All right, looks like it is. Okay. Next item, commission business. I see Commissioner Blackie has joined us. Noon. Efficiency study final report. Can you tell us, Elizabeth, where that stands?
So we received the final report, all 746 pages on Tuesday morning at 3:40 a.m. So I don't know, oh, Beth is on here. She has isolated the sections relevant to the commission. And I think we're going to send it in a zip file, Beth. Or are you going to post it on SharePoint? Not the whole report, it's long and it's still very much not public, but I am more than willing to share what's more or less previously been presented to the group, chunk out those sections. So Beth,
Sure,
just remind me the format you want to
Sure,
share.
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. It looks like we have 7 or 8 sections that I'm happy to pull out. I can put them together in one flowing Word document if that works for you all, and I'll separate them per section. I'll give you a little like a listing at the top so you know what's coming. And I think it's pretty evident by the title, but I can get that over to you today if that works.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, if
it'll
it's not
be-
ready for SharePoint. I'm sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it'll be by close of business.
Sure.
That's great.
And then also, fleet management is a separate section, but I know it's relevant to the commission's work. So
Right, and I have that in their group. Yes.
And again, it's up to you all whether that gets put on SharePoint at this juncture. Since it's in draft, you just want to email it to the commission members, but we would like to see it because
Yep.
Time is getting tight here, as I said.
Sure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So we get to the draft discussion document, and Dan sent me an email and said this is quite a document, and it is, and it shows everybody's hard work. The idea here is what I'd like to do is to go through the particular sections, see if there is anything in the sections here that any of the commissioners would like to comment on, and then if there's some obvious edits or anything that somebody has, then the next, again, going back to the timetable, the commission established at our September 30 meeting. So the idea would be then a week from today, we would distribute to the commission something that looks more cohesively like the draft final report. We have sections from the interim report that will be imported into this version and pull that whole thing together. I'd like everybody to look at that, review it. It'd be great if people have red line comments, if they could send it. And then I think at our next meeting, which will be October the 28th, assuming that works for everybody, we'll discuss substance, formatting, final editing. It might make sense at that point to have either a group of volunteers or particularly interested copy editors at all, a smaller group, to take another run at it before we have the what ought to be pretty close to final available to the commission for last comments, last edits, any discussions needed. So what I'd like to do today is go through the sections we have here, just get some general, anybody's general comments or reactions, having had the document for a little while, not as long as I'm sure most people would like. And we'll make notes of that and then proceed to get that October 21 document in everybody's hands, edited, updated, and ready to go for discussion on the 28th. So having said that, anything in the introduction section. I had a couple points, but let me see if anybody else has something they want to get to first. Everybody loved the introduction. Good. Couple of thoughts that I had is there's a list of subcommittees, and we need to get Commissioner Jones' name appropriately put in there, and also in terms of the sort of the processes portion of this, we need to talk about the surveys we've done, a public input meeting, and a couple of other things that I think will reflect the efforts of the commission. And I also think we should, what did I do there? I think we should also, sorry for the tour of my conference room here. Wait a minute. It's not going to work. Wait. Sorry about this. Bear with me a second. All right, I'll tell you what. Let me get my IT person here. And then I'll come back in video. But what I wanted to say is that there are a couple of things that I think we can add here about the work of the subcommittees and all their efforts.
Bill?
Yes.
Dan here. I think it would be appropriate to list all the commission members in the introduction or someplace. I know I can't recall, but there was one or two who left, and then we had a new member or two. So that just should be clarified, I think.
Yes, and that actually in the interim report, the after the title page, the first page of the interim report was a list of everybody, and reflected that Commissioner Benetti had left the commission, that Commissioner Jones had joined. So yes, we will. That will be.
That should be in the final report, not hidden.
Yep, got it. Yes.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
So with the subcommittees, were you talking about adding like a little description for each of the subcommittees?
We could certainly do that.
And I'm sorry, Phil, are you on page 5 or of the document?
I am on page 5.
Okay.
Someone, excuse me, my IT person's here. Sorry, everybody. Trying to. It's better. It's good. It's good. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, I'm on page 5. Is there something else that somebody wanted to say about page 5?
I mean, it certainly describes the subcommittees in general, what they're doing. Are we thinking
The next
more there?
The next section, which is on page 5 at the bottom, which is the procurement, staffing, training, and certification provisions. Peter had a number of comments, as you can see in the margin, about again, there's a reference to the resurvey. There are, she's got some additional, page 6, some additional stats, updated percentages, a couple of things that she asked if Rose Butler could confirm. couple of things based on the Chief Administrative Officer's presentation at the last meeting. And those seem to be they're just in the most of what we have is in the form of updates, and there are some new, if you will, redline recommendations in there. So I don't know if there are any reactions to that, or if anybody else, since Peter's not here, if Carla Chambers or Steve, who are present, would like to add anything to Peter's comments or anything they want the commission to think about or discuss at this juncture.
In reference to Peter's
Carla,
section,
you're muted.
I am.
I can hear you. Now you're muted.
Okay, I know, right?
Right, we heard you before.
You're still muted.
Really?
No, I think it's something with Phil going on with
Can't hear you,
Phil.
Carla.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear Carla too.
Okay, so
Yeah, we can hear her.
Phil, it's you.
Let's get the message to Phil that it's him.
Yeah, whatever new place he's doing
I
is.
can't hear Carla.
You can't hear her? We can.
All right, I just said no to Phil.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said no. Okay.
Said one moment. We've all been there.
Yes. Yes.
Well, as long as this moment, Elizabeth, right, the last sentence just before where all the committees are listed, it says ex office, it should be ex officio. There are a few other little typos and periods, but that's one I just happened to see because we're on that section. Point that out.
Elizabeth and Jasmine also, I know DPW and T is the current department name, so we should probably double check those throughout the document. I guess I saw a couple DPWs in there from.
And I had one other question. I wasn't on the MBE one, but all the other subcommittees listed chair. Was there a subcommittee?
Ms. Carla was our chair, our subcommittee chair.
Then it should say subcommittee chair after Carla, like it does for all the others.
Good point.
Anything else? While we're waiting for Phil, I texted Phil.
Says now your speaker's not working.
Can you hear me? I texted Phil and I asked him, I said we could hear him and we could hear each other.
I got a lot of digesting to do. I got to get through this, guys, and I apologize, but from a
Yeah. Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, we can. Can you hear
Now you
us?
can hear me? Yeah,
Can
I
you
can't
hear
hear,
us?
but I can't hear anybody. Like, Carl, I can't hear you. That's a problem. Yeah, I can't hear you. Yeah, okay. All right. If you all can hear me, I'm going to sign off and go to another computer. 5-minute break. Talk among yourselves. I'm so sorry. I'll be back momentarily. Thanks.
Okay.
One thing, Elizabeth, under sustainability, it has after my name subcommittee chair twice. Once will be enough.
So nice they had to do it twice.
I would say that
How committed he is.
Our committee with Carla and Sheila on it, everybody was a subcommittee chair.
Oh.
That's the way it really worked.
I don't know.
I got to put all the.
I was going to suggest, because it was more or less it's copy paste into one document without proofreading, that one, I hope to catch all of these things between what PETA also put in there, but I think if we could, in track changes, make note of these, because I'm trying to capture everything as you all saying it, but we would probably be here till Saturday, pointing out, punctuation and typos. So I think it might be a better use of our conversation when Phil returns to kind of talk more about the sections and the recommendations and any feedback or challenges that we have with what's in there.
Got it.
unless you want to stay on WebEx with us for the next, 24 hours. We can do that too.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
I was gonna say, we love you, but.
And I also want to point out, our graphic designer is likely to just take the formatting she did for the interim, where a lot of the layout for the committee structure and titles will just be replicated. But in case she doesn't, please feel free to find those typos. And thank you, Steve. Yes, we do need to do a search and replace for DPW, the DPWT.
On page 6, there's C table question mark and analysis to come. I assume those will happen, whatever they are.
I think,
First paragraph on page 6.
well, if it refers to the Public Works LLC document, I
And then
think
it
what we'll
says
wind up doing is
shadowed
that,
in, it says C table question mark.
yeah, I think,
Analysis to come. And
I
are
think
those
PETA
from PETA?
I think she's suggesting that maybe
Oh,
she
I see.
just
Those
meant
are-
the
those are
appendix, but I
Alright,
think what the Public Works LLC report will be out by the time this is published, because their report will be released before the end of November. So we'll probably just link out to that report
I think that makes sense.
as opposed to adding 746 pages as an appendix to this, or even a portion of it.
Or
So,
maybe-
yeah, no, thank you for that catch, though.
Elizabeth, as I think
Yes.
about at minimum 3 kind of reports that are coming together. The
Yes.
diversity and inclusion report and disparity study, the performance report, and our
Yep.
procurement commission report. What is the administration's plan for kind of reviewing all of these, looking at all of the recommendations? Is there a precedent one over the other? Because there was really a lot of overlap with
Yeah.
all the work that's being done.
That is a very helpful question. I appreciate it. And I know, having spoken with Madam CAO about this, that for the purposes of the commission's work and the Public Works LLC review, we will be putting together an implementation plan, which will include feedback from department heads about what's doable, what needs funding, what might have to be put off. I dare say many of those are more applicable to the Public Works LLC report. A lot of the things I see in this report are either flagged in the disparity study or things that we're very much going to do, but there will be an implementation plan that reflects our intentions regarding the recommendations and timetables. Because that's key, especially where it potentially, again, with the Public Works efficiency review, costly. In addition, I will preview that some of the Public Works LLC recommendations and potential cost savings require an upfront investment. And so we are asking them, that's one of the reasons for the delay in their product or their deliverables, that we ask them to do the number crunching. What do we have to spend in order to eventually realize the savings? So I don't expect the commission needs to do that, since your focus wasn't so much about saving money. But we will put your recommendations through the same process, because otherwise these reports sit on shelves and we don't want that.
Thank you.
Oh, certainly.
I agree.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, can you hear us?
Much
Right.
better.
I can hear you. I'm so happy to be seeing all of you again. I apologize. I thought I'd get fancy because we have this conference room set up with all this great stuff. And somebody said, why are you sitting at your desk? You could be, I said, okay. So that's the last suggestion I take from anybody. So I apologize. I'm mindful of how precious everybody's time is. I apologize for that. So did you guys get through the rest of the document? All done?
We did. We got a lot done in those 4 minutes.
Okay, good, good. All right.
The mainly, Phil, just for your knowledge,
Please.
I suggested that if people could make their typo, punctuate those kind of edits and track changes, we
Yes.
just focus this conversation more about the content or the substance that folks may have additional questions or challenges with. And then I can spend my time kind of trying to consolidate those versions.
Perfect. Thank you, Jasmine. That's a great suggestion. Okay, so I think we were at the procurement, staffing, training, certification. And I think I had asked, or was trying to ask, maybe no one heard me, is whether, since Peter's not here, whether any of that committee's other members, I guess, and those in attendance would be Carla Chambers or Steve Walsh, if they wanted to add anything, and or if anybody had any other questions, suggestions, comments, again, going to substance as opposed to track changes kind of editing.
And
Anything
for
else on
my
that?
opinion, in reference to substance, Peter captured what we had talked about in our subcommittees. One of the only piece that needs to be done is on the MBE committee side, when we are talking about certain things, is we want to reference back to Peter's piece from the staffing training side. So and I don't know if we can do that now, excuse me, now or until the final report. So when we say something, we can say, please refer to page whatever, for Peter's section, or and vice versa, so that people can see automatically within the document that they align with one another.
Yes.
But that's later down the line after, we get through who's on what page.
That makes perfect sense. And I think, at least as I'm envisioning the draft that goes to everybody on the 21st, that at that point, because everything will be loaded in then. So at that point, then, Carla, your subcommittee's portion is in there, and you can redline in referring back to pages. You can leave it blank until we have the actual pages set up. And we'll sort out also the order in which these things should appear. Maybe it'll be alphabetical. Maybe we'll do it some other way. But I understood that's.
If I can just say, I really like the fact that purchasing comes first. I know probably there's a piece in it maybe about code and manual, but because purchasing kind of hit everybody else, through the training and through, who's on first, who's on second, purchasing and training kind of captured that. And then out of that, you can fall into best practices and sustainability. But that's just me and my analytical self. But I just kind of think we should start at least with that portion, the procurement, staffing, training, the part that Peter worked on. I like the way it starts. So.
Got it.
That's just me.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Any other questions, comments on that section? Okay. I think next up is construction, and that's on page 14. And Commissioner Walsh, did you want to say anything in particular? And then if anybody else has any comments or thoughts on this section?
So there was
Before
one.
you-
Go ahead.
Phil, before you get there.
Yes, yes.
Two things on and Dan didn't speak up on this, and so maybe we're okay. On the purchasing manual, the code and the manual revisions, we got a pretty concise comment here about our recommendation on what needs to happen. But one of the things that we talked about a lot, and Dan hasn't mentioned it, was what should, in addition to kind of reviewing and updating the manual, was this idea of precedence. And I'm not sure, Dan, if we came back, I know there was a lot of conversation about reconsidering how the manual is used and where it fits between the code and the manual. And I don't know that we say enough about that.
Thank you, Scott, for saying that. I think the interim report had a stronger statement, and I think we should go back to that, which is to make it clear that the order is
Yep.
charter, code, manual. And I think that was in the original statement, and
Correct.
thank you for recognizing that, and that should be reemphasized here as the final report. There were reasons there. I was told informally, and I would share with Phil privately rather than the group, how that peculiarity that the manual has precedence over the code came about. It's purely informal discussions with some people in county government.
Okay.
Not worth repeating at a public meeting, but there was
Understood.
didn't happen by accident.
Understood.
So, we should be very clear, and I think we should state it very clearly in that section, as we did in the interim report, that it's code, charter, code, manual, and that's the process.
Sure, and thank you both for that, for those points. We're going to take what's in the interim report and put it in the final report. So
Okay.
we'll make that point if we think that needs to be
Yeah, I think that needs to be
tightened up more. We
emphasized.
can.
I think
I'm
that needs to be tightened up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So again, for the October 21st version, which will have all sections as opposed to just newer revised sections, that'll be the time to tune that up. But I appreciate you all pointing that out, and I made a note of it. Great, thank you. On construction, comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody had a chance to read them, but I guess one of the biggest things that we talked about was one of the last items that we spoke about. And Jermaine, I know he's not on the call to really talk about it, but it was this idea of responsible contractor language. And he was proposing that the county adopt a process by which contractors would certify that they're following the rules as far as wages are concerned. And there was a lot of discussion in our subgroup about how that should be implemented. Ultimately, what we came to was the idea that it could be woven into yearly pre-qualification of contractors. And I think we all were okay with some generic language that the county should consider it. And then the language that I proposed here was potential language that they could adopt, understanding that none of this had been vetted through law or really, anybody else other than our subgroup. So that's the genesis of that. Now, one of the final comments that Pete had, and it was a good comment, was that Jermaine wanted it to apply to subcontractors as well. And the fact that we were including it in a yearly pre-qualification, that subcontractor requirement would not work in that. So my edits that I'll send to Elizabeth and Jasmine include deleting what you see here as far as the subcontractor requirement there. So I think that's where we left off as a subgroup. And again, it's sort of a general idea that was put forth. We thought it was something the county should at least consider. It doesn't add a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, maybe not. Jermaine's idea was that the county should do more with promoting the use of contractors that abide by the rules. And that's where that stood. So again, I'm not sure if folks had a chance to look at it, but that's the idea there. And we had some other small items that we included in this version. One was at the beginning on page 14, how the county DPW&T is going to implement the prevailing wage law that they just adopted last year. That's all tied to sort of additional staffing and the expansion of the PRISM program to monitor these things a little further. So.
Thanks, Steve. Comments, thoughts? Jermaine's. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, the responsible subcontractor language, I think, was a little bit redundant when you consider that we do have a pre-qualification process that other places do not have. But and any wage law issues, violations are covered by fines and that type of thing. So if they put it, I didn't have a problem if they put it in the pre-qualification. But what I tried to address was that the general contractor cannot be responsible for the subcontractor's verifications of what he does, especially at the time, even at the time of bidding, we don't even know sometimes who the subcontractor is. So, and when you tie that to fines and everything else, it just doesn't make it fair. It's not a fair process. So I was really wanted to leave the subcontractor verification out of it. But if we want to do the responsible contracting portion as part of the pre-qualification process, that was okay.
Understood. Other comments? Okay.
One additional one, Phil, if I could.
Yes, sir. Of course.
This relates a little bit to the construction, but a little bit to the last sections, but I'll jump ahead anyway. The part of the work we were doing, I think in PETA subcommittee, but also in the construction was AE procurement, engineering architect procurement. And I had got some information, requested and obtained the information from the American Council of Engineering Companies on a statewide, county by county summary of AE procurement.
Yes.
And that was part of the, I guess, going to be the appendix.
Yes, yeah, sorry. And I think it starts on page
40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night. I actually reached back to the ACEC just to verify that we could use that document in our document. And they're going to discuss that and give me a final answer on that. Their only concern was that was a sort of a working summary. They want to call it something else other than maybe call it a draft document or something like that. And they'll give me that final language soon. So I will pass that on, but I just wanted to make sure you all knew that they're going to comment on how we can use that document.
And I know my fellow lawyers on the call will appreciate your attention to copyright law. Commissioner Walsh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Noted. Appreciate it. Okay, Dan, I think the next up starts on page 18. It's sustainability. Any comments for the group generally?
Only that it was a group effort. Sheila Dixon, Carla, also Jen Iosa and Megan Bennett, who are now the sustainability director. Rich Keller provided the county revisions, and Delegate Dana Stein, who is vice chair of the Environmental Matters Committee in my district, all reviewed it, and we all agreed to what's there.
Great, got it. Thank you. Other thoughts, comments about sustainability, that section? Okay. I believe next up is on page 28, fleet management. I think we're back to you, Commissioner Walsh, on that.
Get to that. I see the cooperative purchasing was in red.
Oh, wait a second. What happened?
Yes. And that's one that I'm a little confused about, so I'll look for guidance here. It's my understanding that cooperative purchasing was going to end up being a subset of best practices. And PETA and I had a number of documents that went back and forth. Candidly, we came pretty close to agreement on that. We didn't come to final agreement on sort of the emphasis on a couple of points. But that I have those documents, but I'm not sure that they're the latest. And but I think it does fit under best practices. If you want to stand alone, that's fine. But probably Phil, me and PETA should go over the differences and see if we can iron them out. Since we're pretty close, but
yeah, understood.
That's since it's in there and it's in red, and since I'm the subcommittee chair, we actually did do the work
Yeah.
But we didn't quite come to consensus as we did on the others, and whether it's you can decide, or the commission can decide whether it's standalone or best practices. I have no opinion on that part.
Okay. We'll look at it. Let's have that conversation before our next meeting. When Pete will be back, I think on the 20th, and then
Yeah,
let's, we'll talk about it.
Minutes, and I'll make a note to send you the latest versions.
Appreciate that.
I remember she may have even a later version, so. I'll let you set that up, Phil. Thanks.
She might, sure, she might be working on it right now for all we know. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready for fleet management, page 28.
So the small committee of Pete and myself got together and talked about fleet management, came up with some questions for the county, sent them out. The county responded. I wove those responses into the language here of what they do and the approaches they take. We tried to focus on purchasing and not really operational things, which is, gets a little hard. We don't want to delve too far on the operational side because that's really out of what we should be doing. So really the recommendation was that, or what we found from our perspective at least, was that the county followed pretty good basic procurement from the fleet side. But certainly, the results of the Public Works LLC will dictate what the future looks like. But it seems that best practices were being followed from what we could see.
Well, it will be helpful to have the efficiency studies, thoughts and recommendations to see if there's anything else we want or we want to dispute from that. I guess we'll have that soon, so that'll be helpful. And we can, again, part of the discussion of the next version of the document. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? Anything you wanted to add about fleet management at this point? Yes, Pete.
Yeah, one thing I did want to add too is one of the things we were looking at, what my concern was too, about use of maybe electric type vehicles and that type of thing. It looks like they are looking, at some of the hybrid vehicles and replacing the fleets, but the big, I guess the big drawback still with the electric is the charging stations and that type of thing, and charge that off. But I think they seem to be on top of what's out there. And as soon as that becomes more readily available, I think they'll be moving in that direction.
And again, Phil, if anybody else has ideas, certainly open to additional ideas, comments, suggestions on language, anything. This is just Pete and my quick view of it.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. And again, I think it will be interesting to see what the efficiency study report has to say, and then we can sort out how we want to proceed from there on that. So if there's nothing else on fleet management, let's go to property management.
And property management, again, was a really late addition to the work that Pete and I was doing. And I threw this together. Hate to say that, but I did. I threw it together to get you something on property management. We were focusing on fleet so much that property management became an afterthought. But in the grand scheme of things, property management really fulfills a role like Public Works in procuring services. And a lot of the overlapping items we've been talking about really relate to property management also. So property management folks had given us some information a while back that I wove into the language of the document here. I think we can improve upon the recommendations a little bit, but it's really similar to fleet management in that the Public Works LLC report will guide what that group looks like. But from a purchasing standpoint, it seems that project control, project bidding is done, according to industry standards. Sort of construction project management made a recommendation that they should be involved in any enterprise-wide construction management, improvements that DPW makes, they should be part of that. And then also, they make big use of on-call contracts. So any future improvements in on-call contract language should apply to them also. So those were the big things, big takeaways from my standpoint, at least. And again, any other ideas, certainly send those through, because that was a small set of eyes looking at it.
No, we appreciate that. Other thoughts at this point? And again, we'll see what the efficiency study folks have to say. And again, we as we read through the whole document with the interim report sections coming in that are unchanged from the interim report, coupled with what we're doing here, we may fleet management, property management are within our responsibility as to procurement. That's something the commission is supposed to be looking at. But again, to the extent that they're mostly covered by best practices or something else, or they take from other sections. And again, I'm mindful of Carla's comment about the sort of starting off with the whole purchasing group and the like, about because that's where it sort of all starts in terms of getting the logistics taken care of for procurement. There may be a lot of cross-referencing covering it that way, but we'll see what all. So we have the additional information from the efficiency study. We'll see what else we need to supplement or work on. But thank you for that, Steve. All right, unless there are any other comments, we'll go to best practices. And so the best practices team is a mighty one. And although the chair is not here, anybody else on best practices want to have any comments for the group?
The only comments that I would make is that, of course, she sent us the draft. We gave her recommendations within it. I don't know if Scott added any, but she did include some things that I had recommended after we went up the draft.
Yeah, and I provided some updates as well. So I think she's captured everything from the committee. It's an opportunity for the, for everyone else to provide their thoughts on what we have for best practices.
Great. And the graphics in there on page 30, on page 34, and we applaud the committee's notion of the graphic. And I think we're going to use it, but it will look different in the actual report. Not the architecture, if you will, but just sort of the way it's presented, so it's a little clearer. The point that's being made by it, but we'll certainly do that. Any other thoughts on best practices? Anything else at this point? All right. I know that, and again, Carla, I want to get your comments, but I know that the MBWB Small Business Subcommittee, there was a lot of work put in on getting ready for the interim report based on the disparity study and the like. And I understand there may be some tweaks to that. And so we'll want to be sure we have all those sections. But I know there's been questions come up about the use of a preference program, bidding preferences and the like. And I think it might be helpful if we talk about that here. And so, I mean, Carla, do you want to set the stage? And I know you have a position on that. We can talk it through. And I think, well, let's just go ahead and start with that. So Carly, you want to set the stage for us?
Sure. There are a few recommendations that came out of the disparity study that everyone here has seen, read in part or total. And the good thing about this committee is that we have varying opinions. And I'd like to be respectful of all those varying opinions and what occurs. And I say that also because we are working with Carla Tucker and her small staff and trying to, on top of the work she already has, it's been expanded to include the DBE program. So the rules change at the federal level based on federal dollar contracts that the county has and will receive. And her office is preparing to be able to manage that. And if nothing else, when all these procurement dollars come in and the county gets that money, then federal rules apply, and they are different than the state rules. At the same time, because we are doing this work, the county is also trying to make their work a little bit easier by, in some areas, if the state is doing it, we can follow state rules as opposed to trying to reinvent and change the wheel at the county level. And if I'm out of line, I think Carla was on the call and she might not be anymore, I'm not sure, but it's from, okay. So Carla, if I'm wrong at any point, jump in. So with that, we have to be careful as to how we talk about the rules and regulations as it relates to MW, the alphabet soup. It was minority and women owned. Now it's DBE, which federal dollars, those rules are a little different. And then depending on other contracts that come in, it could be veteran owned. So we're trying to take all these different rules and, if we can, put them in the box and things of that nature. With that comes some discrepancies, and we as a group, and because I'm the sub chair, trying to bring us to a consensus. And as we all know, let's just be honest, when we're talking about subcontracting to the minority and women business community, that in itself can be contentious. I will say the group does not know, but I will say this. My understanding in this commission, in this group, is that we work to not just together, but we keep things within the group. And while all of us may go out and ask our associates and colleagues their opinion, what occurs in reference to documents and information that is written stays within the group. So I'm saying that, and if I have to go more specific, I will. I'm saying that for the specific purpose of, I want us to be able to talk about what our discrepancies are, and we can be as frank as we need to be and still be respectful, but I want it to stay in this group. And I'm also bringing it to the entire commission because we have, like Dan, not only, Dan was doing code and sustainability, but Dan has the expertise from the an elected official position, and he understands law. Steve, he comes in from a different perspective and has had to deal with contracts from varying points. And even though he's not in our MBE committee, he still understands some things. So I would like to have a discussion about how we manage differencing of opinions and keep it within the commission. So with that, we are having a conversation in reference to preference and what the county is going to do versus what the state is already doing. And in our subcommittee group, there was email discussions after I put out, when we had our sub meeting and we had PETA in the group, because PETA, from her experience in purchasing as well as what she was responsible for doing, we asked her to join so we could be in sync with what she's doing from the purchasing, staffing, certification side. That being said, one of the issues has been around preferences for small business, and the state does have a small business preference program. Scott is very familiar with it and has provided us some information, followed up with an email regarding that, but in reference to what's happening and how we're trying to align. And again, Carla, if I'm off, please reel me back in. However, Peter and his varying associations are in total disagreement with this preference program. And so without, getting to, we need to settle this here in this commission. I want to settle it within the group. I don't want outside organizations getting any more information about what goes on in this group. It's one thing to talk to them. It's another thing to share my document and our draft recommendation outside of this group. I'm just going to say that. So I'm bringing it to the full group. I want us to be able to handle it. And because we have this going on, I cannot provide another document to the full body to bring it because I'm getting this. So with that, I don't know if Peter, you want to bring it up, or Scott wants to say something, or Sheila, but I need this resolved today so that I can provide a report that we were supposed to get it done a while ago. So with that, whoever wants to take the floor.
Well, let me jump in just for a second, and thank you, Carla, for giving us the context. A couple things, and I would like to hear from Scott and from Peter. Like maybe Scott, you could talk to us a little bit about the preference program, so we have a general idea what the particular aspects of that are, and then Peter. So I want to hear from you. I guess so there are really two parts of it, at least that I see. And if somebody sees differently, please speak up. One is just the process for examining this issue, which is a significant issue and needs to be sorted out. And then the other part is and sort of how that gets done, so that this very important committee can either give us the additional language, or if we can't get the additional language, that gets to part two of what I'm looking at here, which is what do we do when we can't get a consensus? And I went back and looked at the executive order again, just to be sure we were covering everything in our charge and what our responsibilities were. And the commission is supposed to, I'm looking at section 4, formulate recommendations. And so for streamlining and improvement functions and outcomes. And then with respect to this particular issue, there's a separate bullet point: evaluate trends in procurement and contracting which affect small and MBE/WBE businesses, and formulate recommendations for improvement. So I take from that what would be helpful to the county is a set of recommendations across the board for all the subcommittees that reflect a consensus and a considered agreement of this commission, where the whole commission can agree. There may be some things that we cannot agree on. I don't think, but I'd really like to hear from everybody on this process piece. I don't think it is helpful or expected that we will, on particular issues, instead of having something we say, this is the commission's recommendation about this issue, then instead we have something like a Supreme Court plurality opinion. So there are 10 of us. So 4 people agree on doing it one way. 3 people want to do it a slightly different way and only agree to parts of things the first 4 do, and then the last 3 are opposed to it. I'm just obviously making up the numbers because I don't think that's helpful. I do think we can say, and I expect there are going to be a number of things where we say you know what, someone could have a commission appointed to just study this one thing and spend a year and pay everybody full-time to do it. All we can do is point out what we've been able to point out. There are other things that deserve further study, or we would say that the commission, subcommittee considered this issue, the commission discussed it. Well, we were unable to reach a consensus. We think it's worth looking at. We can even put the differing viewpoints in without attributing them to any particular one, to say these are the kinds of issues. And then the county can decide if it wants to, how it wants to do that. But as a fundamental piece, and maybe we're all agreed, and if so, great, and if not, let's talk about it. But I think the idea is our recommendations should be recommendations that the entire commission adopts and says, yes, these are, by consensus, these are our, these are the commission's recommendations. The other things that we can't agree on, we just can't agree on. They can get treated in an appendix that we think it's appropriate, mentioned elsewhere, but aren't the recommendations. Because I think we've been asked to formulate recommendations that will have an effect, and offering up something that's a little more piecemeal, I don't think is consistent with our mission. But I'm just one voice, and I just got to go first. So if anybody else has some other thoughts on that,
and
please.
To that caveat, I do remember, I think Dan told me that it was either Dan or Peter said that there was something that Dan wanted, but because it didn't align, his dissent or his comment is in an appendices, and I'm for the dissent opinions to be in appendices, but we can't get there yet. And so I'm just to let you know, I do want us to have this discussion. I'm for dissenting opinions being included, but we aren't even there yet. So with that, I'm gonna let Scott take it for, unless Carla, you need to, if not, because I saw you put your whatchamacallit on, but I would really do want to hear from Scott from the legal aspect of this.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about the state program, Scott, what you have to tell us, and then Pete will hear from you, and then anybody else who'd like to speak to this particular issue.
Sure. So this whole conversation stemmed around small business preferences. In other words, very clearly providing additional points in procurement score for small businesses, right? So, break it down. The procurement score is 100. And if you're a small business, you get a preference points of, let's say, 5 or 10 on that 100 score. The state has implemented this program at the state level. And that's what we discussed, because I think there was some discussion that no one was doing it. That was part of the discussion. And it's actually under COMAR, under the small business program. And section is 2111-0105. I did share that with the committee. So without getting into a great level of detail, Phil, that's really what this turned on. And once you say consensus, I think most of the members of the subcommittee were of the opinion that we should follow through with the recommendation that what is being done at the state level should also be done here in the county. And needless to say, we do have a dissent on the subcommittee. Perhaps we should go back and have one more discussion in the subcommittee as part of our recommendations, and give you as our chair and the rest of the committee our recommendation on how this should be cited in the report. That would be my recommendation for this specific issue.
No, I think that's I think it's a sensible part of the process, because I would like the subcommittee to go back and have a further discussion, but I think to put it in context too, and that's what I'd ask you all to please do, and then let us know what your recommendations are. But Pete, do you want to address the sort of the merits of it, and what from your experience, what the issues are facing some of the contractor community about the use of preferences as has been described here.
Yeah, I do. I think we have to be clear that we bid on state, all those agencies we do bid with. And
Peter,
state-
could you
well,
speak up a bit? Come closer, but I can't quite hear you. Thank you.
We do bid with a lot of these agents, especially state highway, and they have been reluctant to put out bid preferences where someone gets a 5% bid preference because it's going to cost more money. It's not fair to the taxpayers either. So we don't see that. But what the state has done is institute small business set-aside programs where they can bid on their project, on projects themselves without having a bid preferences, where large contractors are not eligible to bid on those projects. And we have no problem with that. But also, if we're going to discuss the law and how that works, I think we need to have an attorney give us an opinion of really, is the county allowed to just have a small business preference? I don't see the counties around Baltimore have that. Carroll County doesn't. I don't believe Baltimore City even has a bidding preference. We feel contractors feel it's unfair. And if we're going to insist on making this type of recommendation, then I think we have to, like we've done with other people, and have experts come in and talk about it. And all those, and the different contracting organizations, their executive directors would love to talk to this organization or to this committee about the bid preference program and how that works. So just to let you know, we bid in Baltimore County on a lot of projects as well. Half of our employees work and live in Baltimore County. And if we are harmed by that 5% business preference, sometimes on a $10 million job, I could be low by $5,000. But the employees of our company will not be able to work on those projects, and half of them are Baltimore County. Now, I have seen, if we're going to do preferences, then maybe we should do a local preference for local contractors. That's been done already, but not for a preference for small businesses. And like I said, if we're going to continue to discuss this, my views and the views of the contracting community are as I have laid out in that letter. So I don't know what else to say, but we think it's completely wrong.
So let me make 2 points, and this is an observation. When we started the commission, the Procurement Commission, and I was representing Maryland minority contractors, and which are some majority, some minority, and I shared with them that I'm on this commission, and I asked them to provide observation feedback about doing business with this county of Baltimore County, and in many areas it was very clear that Baltimore County, that's why a lot of companies didn't do business with Baltimore County, because one, in the disparity study, it was very clear that African American companies in particular were the least in getting business. Two, even some of the companies who are prime contractors didn't do business with Baltimore County because there was a lot of bias. But my point is, what I said to them was, follow the various drafts. We're going to be having public meetings where you can come on and testify. Even architectural and engineering firms that I recommend, I said, send in your testimony about procurement with Baltimore County, blah, blah, blah. During the process, when the draft came out, the first draft, I sent it to them. Actually, Baltimore City does have a small business. It was introduced through ordinance. I think the issue with Baltimore City is that because of the inconsistency over the last X amount of years, I think it was introduced under the Rollins Blake administration, Helen Holton. I'm not sure what has happened. I mean, things are just kind of chaotic, but I know they do have it. It was done by the council. But those were the opportunity, in my opinion, to have presented their positions to the board on various things that we have been discussing. I guess my concern is Pete's business. He does business in Baltimore County. Somebody who's doing a majority of business in Baltimore County, how can they be as objective on something like this when it's going to have an impact versus someone who is subjected to, being kind of being on the outside looking in or listening to various feedback on this commission. So to some degree, it's somewhat, and I've thought this from the very beginning, I could see where in some ways his input for his company is sort of like a conflict because
excuse me.
let me finish, because he does business directly with the county. So I could see why his company would be opposed to it. I mean, I have a relationship with ABC. We have a partnership in MCA. I did reach out to Michael Henderson in reference to some of the recommendations on this. And I was waiting for his feedback on it. But I guess the bottom line is for each of our various subcommittee, before we bring it to the larger group, we try to come up with a consensus. We don't necessarily agree on everything. But if we have the majority of us within that subcommittee or on the commission agreeing, again, these are recommendations. And yes, there are a whole bunch of issues on this recommendation that Baltimore County Law Department is going to have to review, just like with the wage issue and holding folks accountable for making sure that they are meeting those meeting those amounts, as well as the way that they operate, which Jermaine was trying to touch on. So I just, wanted to say that in addition to.
I really don't appreciate that because I am an objective person. I was put on the committee because we work in Baltimore County to begin with. So yes, we are a large contractor, but then Carla, she's subjective too because she represents small businesses. So as a consultant, so what are you trying to say?
So Peter and Madam Mayor, let me provide some additional clarification on this, Peter, and perhaps the interest that you represent, and all of us bring our interest to the table, our backgrounds and our knowledge, right? That's why we're all here. But in terms of this idea of a small business preference, as I shared in the meeting, the way the state is implemented, they're using it as another tool. It is not mandatory that a procurement be designated as a small business preference, similar to it is not mandatory that a procurement go in the state level, or assuming that we do apply it in Baltimore County, a small business reserve, which would then be reserved for small businesses. These are additional tools that can be used to create or provide more equity in procurement in Baltimore County. And that was the point when it was raised in our committee. I tried to stress this. We are looking for tools, and this is what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be making recommendations in procurement and providing the county with recommendations on tools that will meet the objectives that they set out for us in establishing the commission. And in my opinion, and I stated this in the committee, this is just an additional tool. It is not one that is going to change procurement for every contract or procurement opportunity or bid that comes out. These are selected. And that's how the state is applying it today. And that would be an opportunity for the county to do the same thing. That's all.
That's fine. You look at it as a tool. We look at it as a possible system of abuse, because you could use that tool and use it on every contract in Baltimore County if you wanted. And we don't feel that tool applies to the counties. Okay, there's 4 agencies that have been permitted to use that tool, not Baltimore County. Okay, and I don't know why we want to recreate and reinterpret the law. And in the we have attorneys that represent each of the different organizations that I mentioned, and they are of the opinion that the county should not think that they can use that tool for their own purposes.
Well, on that piece, and Steve, I'll get you in 1 second. On that piece, Pete, I think there's a fundamental question, just as there is for the state, whether any governmental entity can have such a preference program. My experience, you can. I think the COMAR provision only applies to the state, doesn't regulate the county. The county's free to adopt, to lawfully adopt, I guess I should say, any program that it thinks will help it do anything, procurement or otherwise. So I don't think the fact that the state says there are 4 state agencies will allow to use this. I mean, if you look at the state procurement law, there are certain agencies that the Board of Public Works is vested with authority to conduct their own procurements up to a certain level or for certain kind of work. So I think as a general matter, the county, if it wished to, would be free to adopt this tool as Scott describes it. Whether this commission recommends that this particular tool be done or that it be considered as a tool or whatever else, I think we ought to wait. The subcommittee ought to go back and see if it can come up with a recommendation to the full commission. But Steve, I wanted to hear from you. You had your hand up.
Just from where I sit, I believe that the document should reflect consensus. I don't think that, or anything we cannot come to consensus on could certainly be mentioned. And this is where the language of the document's important. Facts can be mentioned, right? And it certainly could be mentioned that that the committee, while there's majority consensus, there is some dissent to it. Not necessarily be specific. We don't even need to be specific about that, other than just referencing the fact that the state might be doing something, or it might have the set aside program, and there's debate about what should happen in the future, and the county should look at it again. So just sort of end it there. I don't think this commission has enough time to deal with an issue that's as important as that. So my opinion.
And I really feel we're going to delve into this issue. We need to bring in these different different associations, let them give their opinion as to why this is not, how they feel about it. When we did have the different public input, but that was after the interim report already did not have that as part of their recommendation. There was no reason for anyone to get concerned that that was going to be a problem in Baltimore County. So, and also the residents of Baltimore County in the survey, they were never asked whether they would like to see a preference program. So, at this point, we have to, if we're going to look at this and put something like this, and we have to do a complete full review again and see if the residents of Baltimore County favor this type of thing, knowing that their taxes will be impacted by that 5% bidding, because someone's got to pay for it. When you get a low price and then you give it to someone that has a 5% higher price, there's a dollar amount attached to that. And we feel that as contractors, we feel that's wrong. And as taxpayers of Baltimore County, I can tell you what, every taxpayer I've talked to doesn't believe that they should have to pay more for something. So
just a second, Chip. Pete, I would say on the survey, I'm not sure that there's a survey design that other than going to procurement professionals or tax experts, people who would understand exactly what this means in any sort of meaningful way. I mean, the survey was the survey is more, do you do business in Baltimore County, and if you do, how's it going, and if you don't, why don't you? But I hear what you're saying about input, And I think there are a lot of recommendations we make here that are going to have an impact on taxpayers and lots of people. I mean, that's just the way it is. We're making recommendations. Obviously, the county is going to have to decide whether it wants to adopt them or not. I just want to be sure we stay on our mission to run this particular issue to ground. And I don't know if there is a way to get a general agreement about it coming out of the subcommittee to recommend to the commission. But I would like the subcommittee to try, and if there are people, Pete, from the Contracting Association, Sheila, Scott, Carla, if there are, have them into the subcommittee. If we need to, we'll have a meeting of the commission, or those commissioners who are able to, all consistent with the Public Meetings Act, able to get together to hear it out, or if they want to submit something in writing, and then we can see if we're able to reach a consensus on it, because it's an issue, and Scott's absolutely right. It is a potential tool to be used out there. I don't know anything about it that is per se illegal, but the program would have to be designed and looked at and figured out. But on the consensus piece, I'd like the subcommittee to take another run at it and let me know where you stand, and then we can decide if we want to hear from a bunch of folks coming in from outside, which is fine, I think, with the rest of us, and make a decision on it or not. And I see you had by Commissioner Dixon, you had your hand up before. I cut you off, I'm afraid. Sheila, did I?
No, I'm good. No, I was just shaking my head in agreement.
So we are.
I would like Carla Tucker to speak, please.
Sure. Well, one second. Okay. Pete, did you want to say something else?
Go ahead, Carla, you can speak first.
Okay. Ms.
I
Tucker?
just wanted to ask everyone to please review Chapter 3 of the disparity study, where it talks about the utilization of prime contractors and the huge disparity there. So that's what we are trying to address. I just want to ask everyone to please read that, so when we come to the subcommittee meeting, that can be discussed with some background knowledge as to why we were looking at that model. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. So, Subcommittee Chair Chambers, can you gather the troops
I
there?
will try to reconvene our people sooner than later to have a meeting to have this.
Just say I'm out of the country beginning Saturday for a week.
So that throws your timeline off, Phil.
Yep. Yeah, and let me just, I don't think we have to waste a lot of time with this, because my position is not going to change from the letter that I wrote. Okay, so, it is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to see, and I'm a lawyer, so I paper. Pete, if there's something from counsel for one of these groups, or if they want to provide a position paper, and I think you did I think you certainly did a job of outlining the points. But if there's any more meat on those bones, in particular that someone else from one of the organizations or on behalf of one of the organizations wants to share, that would be helpful to have. And if they could share that in your absence, that would be great. And then I would ask the subcommittee to take a look at that. I hear about the timeline. We'll work on the rest of the report, and we'll, this will be one of those things. We'll have to have a cutoff at some point, but let's see if we can't run this to ground. Maybe we can't. And then let's just decide then the drafting would be, and we'll decide if we want to do it in an appendix, or whether we don't say anything at all. But this is something we've considered. And if we can't reach a consensus recommendation, then it can certainly be put out there for further study or review, if that's what the entire commission wants to do. So I guess, go ahead.
I'll go with Pete out of the country. I don't know where he's going, and discuss it out of the country.
That you all do whatever you need to do. The travel budget for the commission is rather limited, but feel free to use it.
Okay, so with that, Phil, when do we need to get this report to you now, since we are past, so that because if Pete is not going to move off of his position, and I respect, and I kind of figured that's where it was going to go. At the same time, we're trying to address something that was brought up in the disparity study, and Carla and her team, and her team, I'm sure she's passed this up the chain or what have you. They're trying to find ways to remedy this. Excuse me. I'm not sure if we need to have another meeting. I welcome a organizational council position on how they feel it will adversely affect them. From Peter's side, I would ask the same from the business organizations that Sheila represents, so that we have it from both sides. And that way, when we have basically all the data, so that when the county's lawyers look at this and they're looking at this recommendation, we have it from all sides. We're getting a full view picture. And it may just have to be that whole preference is an asterisk in and of itself. So that here's the asterisk, here's the reason why we can't come to a consensus, but the commission has come to the consensus of, here's the data. Y'all figure it out. But I think if we can do that, if I can get a letter from Peter's lawyer organizations and Sheila's lawyer organizations, and we can wrap that up that way, I'm good. My concern, number one, is we don't share recommendations, written recommendations outside of this committee. Number two, please be careful how we address our discontent, because we have not just commissioners on this group, we have county employees that do this work every day. And at the end of the day, we're all human. And we have to, we work, Elizabeth and Jasmine and Carla, and to some extent, of course, Beth is on this, but we work them, to the nth degree, and they are still human. And I'm very sensitive of how we couch things that can make any of them feel just, I'm going to say awkward. I'm not going to use the word I really want to use, but it makes them feel awkward and unsure. So I'm asking, I'm cloaking it on purpose, that we just, have to understand that some of the things that we say causes a reaction to the very people who are trying to just do their job. And let's just be sensitive to these county employees that we are working with, and we're trying to make their lives better. And certain things we just kind of need to leave.
No comments were made to any county employees or any implication of that.
But you don't understand the consequences of your comments. And let me just put it that way.
Fully.
Well,
and that's why I'm not retracting any of those comments.
Exactly. So now you have made county employees feel a certain way.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Sorry you feel that way.
Okay, well, this part of the discussion, I think we can have separately.
One more comment concerning the MBE disparity study. If I remember, that disparity study was done way before also the cabinets made significant changes. Okay, so some of those recommendations were done before the changes the change got made, and then this disparity study came out. So a lot of that was already addressed. And if I remember, the biggest thing in the disparity study was that the female contractors or whatever, or firms were the ones that seemed to have, that's where the disparity was. Not all minority contractors, was basically the females. If I remember reading that,
women-owned were good. No, it was women-owned were good. It was African American.
Everybody else.
Yeah, everybody else was good. It was African Americans that were
and Hispanics.
Yeah, Hispanics were even, I think, better than African Americans.
Well, here's the thing, guys. Hang on one second. Here's the thing. Not in the cabinet's administration. We've got a disparity study. Anybody can go back and compare the two and see where we are. Let's deal with what we have here now. I think we should agree that other than those on the commission that are draft recommendations back and forth stay within the commission. And I think we'll continue to do that. I would say for anyone of any constituency on this commission who would like to have one of the groups that they work with or organizations they belong to weigh in on the pros, cons, or anything else of small business preferences, let's ask them to put something in writing and to send it to Carla, and we can all take a look at that. If the subcommittee wants to go back and have another conversation, great. But I would say for those who are going to ask outsiders to, these stakeholders, if you will, who are not a part of the commission, to provide something about small business preferences, we need it quickly. I mean, I'd like to have it by the end of next week, which is beyond the 21st piece, but we'll get that rolling. There's plenty of other things to work on with this report, and this we can plug in as we go along. So let's.
Okay.
So if you have any of those, let's get the information in. Otherwise, we'll have to move forward based on whatever information is in hand by close of business next Friday.
Okay, so you want
thank
it next Friday, everything in? So if you want
no,
it
no,
filled by Friday, can I would like to ask to receive it by Thursday. And then I can wrap it up and get it to you, Phil. I guess that means CC and Elizabeth and Jasmine.
Well, let's think about this a little bit. What I was saying is, to the extent that we're going to have any of these additional these other organizations, put it that way, from anybody's constituency who want to comment in writing, I think those should be submitted and provided to you, Carla.
Yes.
By next Friday. All right.
Okay.
That is if I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I believe that's a day after we will have the next iteration of this draft report. But I don't want to hold that up. So we're going to get the next iteration of the draft report out. What I would say is, after you have all that information, the subcommittee ought to meet and look at that and see if that changes anybody's mind, moves the ball down the road, suggests that maybe it isn't an issue, whatever you all decide, and then come back on the 28th at the next commission meeting, and let's either say we reached a consensus, we don't have a consensus, and if we don't have a consensus, then let's figure out how we're going to handle that.
Okay.
But I don't want to hold up
No.
next version, all right? But I think today is Thursday, it's almost the close of business Thursday. I'd like to give all these outside organizations who wish to speak up I think a week is a fair amount of time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I won't be here all next week, but I'll try and contact them tomorrow.
That'd be great, Pete. Thank you. Anything more on this topic? Okay. The last item, I think we've actually sort of covered, which is just the logistics and timing for revision of the discussion draft, and review and comment upon the next draft. So any red line comments? I think this was when I was dealing with my technical difficulties, if you will, but I think there was a conversation. Did anybody set a sort of a deadline for red line edits to this particular document we have in front of us today?
No, we didn't set a date. Does that need to be for the 21st or no?
But it would be, because the next document will be in order to, Jasmine, in order to collect the redlined revisions to the draft discussion document, and then marry those up, if you will, to the interim report where those sections haven't changed, how much time do we need to do that? Jasmine, did we lose you?
I'm looking. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Is the host.
Yeah. I guess my point is if we had red line comments to Jasmine, Elizabeth, by close of business on Tuesday, is 2 days enough time to turn those around, put them in a?
It's
No.
always one of those, how many are they gonna bid, you know, it's a volume thing. It is possible if it's not overwhelming. Just thinking about what else we have next week. So I'll say 80% likely doable.
All right, does that get better if we make it Monday for red lines?
For this coming Monday?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think further out is only easier because of some other deadlines we have around some projects that have a different time sensitivity. Let's go with Tuesday, and at least it gives us two. So you want us to distribute on Friday. It gives us 2 solid days to do it. So that's, yes, Tuesday's fine. Better than Monday, actually.
Okay. All right. So red line comments, revisions, edits, somebody sees a typo, comments, questions in the margin and taking this Word document, send them to Elizabeth and Jasmine, and please copy me. Let's have those in by Tuesday. I'll send an email for those commission for all of us here to remind us, but also for the Peter's not here and Jermaine's not on the call either. So we'll have that Tuesday deadline. Then we'll look for something on Thursday that will be the document we discuss on the 28th. And then we'll also get a report on the 28th on the procurement. And I think from what I understood from Jasmine's comments, we'll have the procurement survey results in the next day or so. I'm hoping we'll have the efficiency study so we can nail down the fleet management and property management piece from the efficiency study. So we can have that discussed on the 28th, and then we can talk about the next round of edits, and then also see where we stand on the small business preference.
Also, Phil, I sent you an email to bring you up to date on the cooperative purchasing.
Yes, thanks,
stuff.
Dan.
So you have the email chain and the 2 documents. I think it'll be pretty easy to work out one way or another. But
Thank you.
That's not going to be as big a project as the one we just heard. So we take care of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, everybody. Is there anything else for the go to the order? Anything, questions, concerns, comments, anything else that should discuss as a group? All right. Well, I thank everybody again for their efforts. It is a little hard to believe we are 6 weeks away from the end of our tenure term. But we will. I think we're going to have a really good final report. And as I think I say every time, it's a privilege to serve with all of you. And Dan and I were emailing, and I think I've made this comment to others. Even if we never meet officially and formally as a commission, it is absolutely on my my responsibilities as chair to gather all of us, at least in some social setting, to celebrate the completion of the final report and our service. So with that, unless there's anything else, we'll sign off. Great to see everybody. We'll see each other on the 28th, and be looking forward to information, communications, and the like between now and then. Thanks again.
It is 3 o'clock also, correct? 3 to 5.
In spite of everything, have a safe trip. Seriously.
Definitely.
Where are you going, Pete? Out with it. Where are you going? He's gone.
Hey,
Going on a cruise.
Going on a cruise. Have a great time.
Yeah, have a great time, everybody. All right, take care. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.